The quilt is made in memory of our son, Jason Allen. And this is a picture of Jason and his fiancée, Lindsay Cutshaw. And this picture was taken just a few hours before they died. And they were brutally murdered on a beach in California.
I had my quilt made in memory of my husband, who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's 8 years ago.
I was looking to have a quilt made for our son, Austin, who passed away in June of 2015. He was hit by a car in front of our home.
The quilts are in memory of my husband, Dave. He was killed by a drunk driver August 3, 2014.
Well, I had saved my son's t-shirts from when he was in high school and college and from his different camps that he worked at, and I thought someday I was going to make a t-shirt quilt with him. So year after year went by. I had them for like 11 years, and I just did not have the motivation to make the quilt myself. So I was talking with a friend of mine, Linda Zerberg, who is a volunteer here at Living Threads, and she was telling me about the ministry, and that your ministry takes pieces of clothing that your loved one has worn and will design a quilt out of it. And I said, well, I really don't want just a quilt, I want a t-shirt quilt. And she says, oh, they do t-shirt quilts too. So she gave me a brochure and explained a little bit more about your ministry. So then I decided I think it would be good to let someone else do the quilt, because I just was not going to get it done. And I knew the craftsmanship would be a lot better here too. So that's when I contacted Jill and made an appointment with her and came in and talked it over and decided that's what I wanted to do, was to have Living Threads create the quilt.
A few years back, we came to City on a Hill with my Red Hat group, and we visited all through City on a Hill, and I became acquainted with Living Threads. And I thought it was such a neat organization, and the ministry was just impressed me so much, the ministry for Africa. And I had that in the back of my mind. And then my husband already had Alzheimer's then. So several years later, my husband had to move to an assisted living facility, and I had all these stacks of t-shirts of all the memories and all the places we had gone on vacation. And then I thought about Living Threads again, and I thought, oh, wouldn't that be neat to keep these memories alive?
I was looking to have a memory quilt made for him out of his clothes. And I had found one on Etsy and was actually in the process of beginning the beginning processes of making it with that person when Living Threads popped up on my Facebook feed.
I knew that because of the amazing man he was, that I had to do everything I could to carry his legacy on, so everyone would always know the type of man he was. And I thought that was the best way to be able to tell the story of my husband by putting stories in all of his shirts, and just so I could always share, and it's a great conversation piece. If people don't know him, I can tell them so much about the type of man he was.
On the first appointment that I had with Jill, I brought in a tub full of t-shirts, and Jill sat down with me and we talked about Jason. She wanted to know who Jason was, who Lindsay was, what their mission in life was, what their purpose was. And she wanted to be able to share with the volunteers the kind of person that Jason was.
When I came to bring the shirts, it was very, very hard, very emotional. I couldn't do it by myself, so my sister-in-law, Jane, offered to come with me. We had the shirts in bags. I had her carry them because I couldn't even hold them.
You're in the grieving process before they pass away, when they have Alzheimer's. When I brought the t-shirts to Living Threads, I was very emotional. It was very difficult.
So the first time we came to Living Threads to drop off all the clothes, we met with Jill for about 3 hours, and wow, how the detail, going through each article of clothing and going through which piece we wanted from each article. That was really, there was a lot of detail and thought put into it, and we were really appreciative of that.
I remember she asked me, well, do you want one that's in blocks? You know, each shirt is a square. Or would you like to have one that's a little more creative and it's kind of designed to fit together like a puzzle, kind of all over the place? And I said, that's who Jason was. He was a free spirit. He was kind of all over the place. So yes, that's what I wanted in the quilt.
We just found Jill to be so compassionate about what she was doing, and she wanted to make sure every detail was correct, and yeah, that we were happy with everything.
Jill spent, I know, at least 2 hours with me going through the shirts, asking me, now which ones do you want to use? What part of the shirt do you want to use? And we talked about patterns, and she showed me examples of patterns.
She had to sit on the floor and lay them out, and it was very emotional. I was very, very thankful for the support of her to get me through this very hard time when I came.
But Jill was so sweet to me and so comforting to me, and I will never forget how you prayed with me, and that was just really, really special.
What keeps me coming back here once or twice a week, week after week, month after month, and now into the years? And the answer I think about with that is these volunteers, this ministry is a part of my community. They are my friends, they are my sisters, they are my prayer warriors. We all play these roles. We switch around as we sit and sew, and the hours accumulate that we have invested in this heirloom that we're getting ready to go back to a family.
I was working on a quilt that remembered a baby, I thought about the family of this child. It became personal to me as we were waiting for the birth of our grandchild. Another quilt I worked on honored a grandmother. The fabrics and the quilt reminded me of my grandmother and the memories that I had of her. I think about the memories that these quilts represent. There is something that I get from each quilt as I work on it. empathy for the family, stirred memories for myself, great thankfulness, and a personal connection. The reason I keep coming back to volunteer at Living Threads is that families need quilts to preserve memories. Children in Kibera need Bible studies and food. And there's Christian fellowship and friendship here. That's what I need. We all benefit.
And I think of this sometimes as my quilt, and I give it everything that I've got. My artistic talents, my quilter skills, my personal joy and faith, and especially the faith that I have that there will come a day when that wife will be with that husband again, and that we look forward to eternity together. And this is something that I can create for her to remember that in the meantime, that she can wrap herself in this quilt on a cold winter night or when sitting out in the sun on a spring day, and she can look at those shirts and remember.
Every time we put another quilt on and start stitching, we realize again that it's more than just stitches on fabric. These fabrics represent people's lives, and the quilting is weaving together the memories that are left for the family.
And those are the memories that keep you going day after day, week after week, year after year. One of the last things I'll do before I turn in a completed project is attach the label that Jill has created with the story that the family has brought to her. Sometimes it's as simple as a picture and some dates. Other times it's as complex as a lifetime story. It's whatever that family needs to put into words, what they need to be able to look at as they pass that quilt around the family circle and together remember, so that anyone who picks up that quilt will know this is in memory, and memories are sweet and dear and forever.
When Jill called and told me it was finished and I could stop by and picked it up, then I came in and they had it just beautifully wrapped up in a box with a bow, and she opened the lid and pulled the tissue paper back, and I thought, oh, it just kind of took my breath away. It was just so beautiful.
And we came in, we picked it up actually the day before his birthday, and that was just wonderful to have it on his birthday. And seeing it complete was, yeah, breathtaking. I mean, it was just wonderful.
Once it was finished, I decided to open it at home in the privacy of my own home and look at all the quilts. And it was emotional, but yet it brought back a lot of good memories of the fun things we did do. You know, it was emotional, but yet it was happy to know that we did have a lot of fun times and good memories over the 52 years we were married.
When I came back to the Living Threads and you guys presented me with the box with the beautiful bow on, and I opened it, all of his years on this earth were condensed to a quilt. And I walked out with a quilt which was beautifully made by the Living Threads and these ladies. When I go to bed at night, I look at it and I can see him and he's with me.
When I received the quilt, I was, I guess, overwhelmed is an understatement. I guess it was a little bittersweet when I, opened it, because it was one of the most amazing gifts I've ever received. Just because, it's something that I can, put around me and feel like my dad is, giving me a hug.
We were very intrigued by the fact that the profit, well, I don't know if you call it a profit, but it went to benefit the kids in Kiberia. That's really what moved us to choose one over the other. Just thought that was such a neat thing to have something made for us, but also to benefit kids who are who don't have as much as we do.
They are very, very creative and very professional. We just were thrilled with it.
In July, Jim and I had the privilege of traveling to Kiberia, Kenya to see firsthand the Living Threads sponsored Bible clubs. We had a wonderful opportunity to see the children there, see the conditions that they lived in, meet the Bible teachers, and meet the families of our students.
It was so much different than what I thought it was going to be, because I thought that it was just garbage dumps, is what I expected to see. But in reality, it was a mile square of tin roof and mud huts made with sticks, mud, and little tin roofs. And the living conditions there were so much worse than what I thought.
And in the rainy season, these children and families live in conditions where the water will take the sewage right into their homes, and a lot of them talked about having to sleep standing up because they had no place to go. Everything was ruined. Nothing was safe.
And we were also able to see the feeding program, and that was going very well.
As we were there later in the day, they were fed a meal consisting of ugali, which is a substance made out of white cornmeal, and it has a consistency of white Play-Doh, and a large quantity of cooked beans or beans and corn that they would serve along with that ugali on these darling little colorful plates that were provided through Living Threads. When the plates ran out, they would use whatever they had, and some even sat by little plastic tables on chairs that were provided by Living Threads. But we could see quickly that they needed more tables because of clubs had grown to such a large quantity that they didn't have seating for everyone.
The Bible clubs is very important for the children, because here they come, they have been neglected in their homes. They come to the Bible club and someone just share with them the love of Jesus, telling them God loves you and we do care about you, and give them hot porridge, share with them some lunches. I think it's an ideal thing, because at home there is nothing. Some of them goes without having a meal until evening to get a very light meal. So when he comes to the Bible club, he gets to share the Word of God. He gets to have at least a porridge at 10, and he gets to have lunch, and he gets to have some people hugging them and loving them. Living Threads are just a God-sent people to our lives, because without the Living Thread, we could not even have the Bible clubs. Because through them, they fund even the porridge, they fund the food for the children, and they fund everything about the Bible clubs. So I think they are a huge help for us, and we thank God for them.
What we found over and over again was the heart of the Lord in these kids and their families. The mothers' testimonies were just very humbling, to say the least.
And after our time in Kenya visiting the Bible clubs, we just left there with perfect confidence that this was the perfect organization for Living Threads to partner with.
You know, I always called Dave my silent servant. He did so many things for the less fortunate, whether it be fixing things or doing financial planning, bringing clothes or food to people, or just listening to them. One time when he came home, we had a good talk after he went on a mission trip to Haiti. He was even more convicted to help others. He had such a heaviness on his heart that he just wanted to help people. Living Threads is a group of women that selflessly give of their time and don't expect anything in return. That's who my husband was. I always called him my silent servant, and that's exactly what these ladies do. I can now sit home and look at the quilts and feel my husband's legacy goes on, knowing that people in the slums of Kibera have been given a better day because of the donations of many people who were on a grief journey just like me.